Hello, welcome. This is Jason from Flintstone Studios, and today I want to show you a tutorial on how to make this foam that's coming from this waterfall here. I saw it on a keynote from the guy that works at Ryan. He was showing how they do it in Unreal. I just put aside to see if I can do some shaded that, and I think the results can go pretty good. So let's get started. There's three things that you're going to need. You're going to need the shader, you're going to need the mesh that it goes on, and the input. So the first thing is with the mesh, I just need a cylinder in Blender. So here's Blender here. I made a cylinder, flattened it out. The total depth control doesn't matter. You can get in, if you want. UV'd it on both sides. So like this side would fill up the whole UV space, and the other side will also fill up the whole UV space. That way it's a neat effect coming out of both sides. So just make that mesh, put it into here. I will hide these other ones from there. We'll take this mesh and we'll put it on here. What we'll do is we will create a new material. And of course, then we're also going to create shape. I'm going to use an unlit graph for this one. Okay, and then we will open this up. Okay, so for the texture is going to look like this, which might not look like a whole lot right now, but I will show you steps that I did to create this texture. So what we'll do is we'll create new, I just did 24 side view. So the key to this will be to edit each channel. What you want to do is instead of having different textures taking up resources, is you can pack different channels um, into one texture. So, so we got three channels here. We got the red, green, and blue. We're going to make use out of all of them. So we'll start off by the red channel. So you notice in this one here, my red channel here is just, that's all this is, just a bunch of waves that connects together, form that pattern, the green channel as well. And then the blue channel I actually use as the middle of the foam, and I'll show you what that is later on. So you can just use a brush on here, just create some strokes that come down. That will come down here. Just create some sort of variety on it. Then what you can do is you can add some variation to it. That sort of makes it a little bit sort of gets but just to create some variety in the grayscale. Because what that will do is when we use the cutoff, it'll cut off parts that are darker and leave only the really white ones to give a lot of interesting variety. So what we'll do is then we will also go into the green channel and just like how I did here, we're going to create some more variety. This one goes like up and big, so we do something very similar to that. Down, pass it down. Not that big a deal. You can take your time. A lot better to do this. So, like this, you got those two channels, and then the blue channel. What I did, I just filled up the whole thing. With white here, white, and blue. So then that's where you end up with basically what I did here. So you got a mixture of the red, green, and blue channels that we will use as our textures in the actual shader graph. So let's go back over here to the graph then. What we'll do is we will take the foam texture, foam, foam material. We'll change it to the shader graph, water foam shader. Then this is the shader that we are creating. Okay, so we're going to open up shader graph here and start creating our shader. There's a few things that we know that we're going to need. We're going to need a color. So we're going to create a color. So this foam color. Add the default to white. You can plot this in here and link it up to the color on the master node. I want to also control the alpha cliff, which will give us some control over how much opacity we're going to get with it. So I'm going to create a vector one. I'm going to call this alpha cliff. I'm going to default this to 0.5. Drop it in here and back. Okay. Now we're going to need our texture. So we're going to create a texture 2D. We're going to call this foam texture. I'm going to select the texture that I created. So we have foam limbs here. And then I'm going to drop this into a graph. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sample texture 2D node, which will link this texture into the graph so we can actually see it and use it. So here's our three channels. So what we want to do is, I link the R to the alpha, which is the red channel, you see that this is, let's change this also to a custom patch. And then that way we can sort of see what it's doing on here. So as you can see, it's cutting away the alpha based on this here. So right here you can see if I mess with the alpha clip, see how it clips it out. It takes all the white, but if I bring it to 1, it will bring it to clip out most of it. So we can fine tune this to how much we want to clip out of the variance of the grayscale on the image. I'll see that at 0.5 for now. Okay, so let's start making this move. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a time node. We're going to put this time into a multiply node, so we can multiply it with a speed vector. So what we're going to do is add a vector 1, or call this speed. Drop this in here, plug it in here, put default to 1. Now, because I want this to move on the Y direction, the up and down direction on this, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this into this is a vector 2, put that into the Y. So I don't want to touch the X direction at all, I just want to touch the Y direction. So we're going to plug that into that, and then we plug this into a tiling offset node that will allow us to offset the texture and plug that into the UV. So we plug this in, you can see it automatically now it's moving in that direction. So you can see on the circle here that's actually starting from the middle and is pushing out to the end. That's pretty cool, huh? So basically what we're going to do is just going to layer different effects onto this just to create some variety in both speed and the foam that's coming out of it. So I'm going to basically duplicate this, which will duplicate this. I'm going to plug this into the same texture, so we got the exact same output here. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to grab the green channel, and I'm going to put this into an add, and plug this one into the B, that one side. So now you can see that those two are actually adding together. This one isn't moving though, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do tiling and offset node off this. The reason why I'm not just grabbing this one right now is because I want to add some variance to the different speeds. So with this one here, what I want to do is I'm going to add a multiply node. And then I'm just going to multiply this by a little bit of a different speed. So we'll go 1.2, maybe just a little bit faster. And then plug in the same vector from that. So see how the one is going just a little bit faster than the other. We'll put this output into the alpha here, and then you can see how it's going a little bit fast. What we'll do is I'll change the code to a slider 0 to 1. So probably won't need to go much faster than that. And actually set the default maybe to point, 0.2. You can sort of see how the effect is placed. So that's pretty much the main effect for the actual just the ripples at the moment on there. The other stuff that I did was just fading out, seeing how it sort of doesn't sort of ends a little bit harshly. So what I did to fix that is that bottom channel of the blue channel of well, I actually create another texture for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sample texture 2D. I'm going to add in another 2D texture. I'm just going to call this one fade. And then I had this fade mask, which is just a gradient. Overlaid onto. I have a bottom white here to cut it off completely, and then a little bit of a gradient here to fade that out. So we're just going to take this onto here, and then we're going to take this and we're going to actually subtract it from this. So this will block out the bottom part. So let's take this, subtract this from this. So see how it sort of fades out at the bottom now, and then we're going to put this into the alpha. So as it starts getting to the edge here, it's actually going to start cutting away at some of that foam and making it look like it's sort of dissolving a little bit more. Okay, we got that now. That's most of the basis of the foam, but I want a little bit more foam. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this again. start class. It's under this we can sort of see what we're going to duplicate this section. We're going to take another tiling and offset node. Needed. We're going to plug this into B. Take the texture, plug it into here. Now what I want to do is I think I'm going to duplicate both of them and move them at yet another. So I'm going to pull out of here. We're going to add another multiply. I'm going to multiply this one go a little bit faster. Do something maybe like 1.5. Add this to the offset. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the red and the green and add them together so that we end up with both of these coming in. And then I'm going to add these ones together so the whole thing gets added. And then add this together to subtract that from that. But I think I also want to offset this. I don't want to completely duplicated. Like, see how the pattern kind of duplicates on here? So I think what I'm going to do before the tiling offset is I'm actually going to multiply. I'm actually going to split out so that I can have both different x and y coordinates. So I'm going to take the y, which is the G channel on there, and I'm going to turn that into a vector 2, which is a y, and then the x I'm going to offset by half, and plug this one in there. So what that will do is it will move this over by half of the screen, effectively changing where it's tiling out of. So as you can see from that, it's just adding a lot more variety to the home that it's creating. Okay, we can move this over now. I'm going to group this. Let's have this as time. So let's save this now, and we're going to sort of throw it on our mesh and sort of see what it's kind of doing. We can throw on our foam here, on our mask here, and then that. Somehow all of that is on here. So I'm going to change the I just need to change the render key. Okay, I found out the issue why it was doing that. The surface type here set to transparent. So what it would do is it would change the render hue to the transparency layer. Or we can change it manually to that. I kind of like to cut off. Now we can cut that off. Perfect. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. It's set up here. Now we got some focus. So now I want to add the foam at the top. Now I do that four, so that it's not just looking like it's coming out of nowhere, right? So there. So in order to do that, we're going to use the other channel from the one that we have to use at the blue channel. So I'm going to create another sample, texture 2D. We're going to sample this texture once again. In order to mask this properly, I want to have control over how much we're going to be able to use it. So I'm going to take out of notebook here, add this into a multiply, and multiply it by half. So the waves on the inside are only going to be moving at half the speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll this along the x instead of the y, so that we can have it just sort of like rotate around here, and then sort of like, oh, it's moving off this whole map. Kind of going around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into x. This into our offset UV. So now you can see that it's rolling through this side like that. Okay. Now to get control over the actual distance of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a vector one. I'm going to call this default this to 1. Actually create a slider. Drop this in here. Now drop this into the Y. So what that will do is then it'll allow us to change where it's going to be tiling up from the top or the bottom of our position. On there. But then we'll also need we're going to have to mask this out as well, so that when it tiles, the bottom piece isn't going to show. Otherwise, it's just going to duplicate across the whole thing. Tile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a rectangle. I'm going to set the width to 1. And then the height, I'm going to do a tiling and offset node. I'm going to plug this into the UV. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tiling, the offset on the Y to match that. Let's try taking this, subtract. I'm going to put blue channel into here, and I'm going to subtract it from here. Okay. Oh yeah, because I haven't moved the, actually moved the, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to 0.5, just so I can get a sense of where this is going. Okay. So I'm going to offset this so that it comes down to the bottom like this. So then I can pull this up. There we go. So then we can see how that completely takes that away. Now, in order for this to move with the offset, so when we have the size here, the middle size at 0.5, so if this is 1, I want this to offset separate of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into a 1 minus, or invert the difference of that. Multiply this, multiply that by 2, and then throw this into the height. And I've set the offset to 0.5. That should do the exact same result that we had. So what this does, it has half of this, so it's always going to be half. And then what this will do is, as the middle size goes, if this goes to 1, it's going to drop this down all the way with the offset. If I go to 0, it's going to bring it all the way to the top. And then anywhere in between is going to keep masking that tiling off of this top here. So now what we want to do, in order to avoid clipping, I'm going to do a saturate. As if we're minusing blacks, minusing stuff, you can do some weird numbers with the values, even though you can't see it. And then I'm going to add this into here. I'm going to add one more saturate at the end here. And then plug this value into the subtract. And then we have our top foam on it. So we'll save this asset, move this out of the way, go back into here, and now all of a sudden we have pretty much everything that we need. So we have the middle size, we can shrink from the middle in all the way to the most. We have our speed, so we can change how fast we want it to go, slow it down a little bit more. And then we have our clipping, so we can decide how much of this we actually want to allow to be in the final value that looks good for what we're doing. Then you can place it under your asset, and then see how you like it. So what I did is I did the same thing with these ones. I just placed them on top, underneath these rocks, and then changed the different values. I have 2 different materials set up so that the middle is a little bit bigger. It gives this little effect here, and then they also branch it off just a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did to recreate this from that keynote using the shader graph. Just to recap, we used one texture, 2 textures with the other fading effect there, but mainly one texture for all the waves. Used the different channels, combined them, added some offsetting to it to create some variety, so that it looks. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll try to do some more for some other shaders or other things that I'll be working on, but I thought this one was really cool and wanted to share it with everybody. Just leave any comments below. Subscribe and like if you would like to see more of these, and we will talk to you next time.